Welcome to the Friday Happy Hour with Victory strategist, award-winning author and your happy hour host, Annmarie Kelly. Each week, Annmarie chats with women who have reinvented, started over or wrote fabulous next chapters. They share how they overcame their midlife challenges and how you can too. So kick back with some good happy hour something to drink and enjoy today's show.
Welcome. You're listening to the Friday Happy Hour with me, Annmarie Kelly. I'm that recovering good girl and your victorious woman empowerment partner. And this is the place where us victory chicks and you men who care about us meet on Fridays to chat about the week and find ways to get inspired and empowered and make our lives sparkle. Thanks for joining me at Happy Hour today. I'm glad you did. You know, have you ever wondered why all of a sudden your computer starts acting up or you're talking with somebody and the conversation goes awry? And you don't even know what happened? It could be something totally normal, like your hard drive is ready to blow or you have terrible communication skills. Or it could be something in the stars, like Mercury Retrograde. There's one of those starting on Monday, and I asked astrologer Joanette McGeoch to join us at Happy Hour to give us the 411 on this Mercury Retrograde thing. Joanette has a wealth of knowledge about astrology and cycles, and in addition to that, asteroid goddesses and the influx of feminine energy on the planet. So she's here to talk about all of it. And this is a special treat for me. I've known Joanette for a while. In fact, I've known her my entire life. Joanette's my cousin. Our mothers were sisters. So, you know how that is. We share some good family stories about our mother's special brand of mom crazy. And you've probably heard me mention her sister before. Her sister is my cousin Marianne. And I celebrate Thanksgiving with her and her spouse Richard. And they're so cool kids. So this year, Joanette and most of her kids were at Marianne and Richard's too. And, you know, it's always a good day at Marianne and Richards. I always have a good time with them and with their family, but it was especially good this year. So Joanette and I hope you, will have some fun today. Listen, I had an interesting week. It was crazy busy, and I'm sure you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's crazy busy between trying to get shopping done and trying to get ready for Christmas. And then you have, all the holiday parties and things. Well, last night was capped off by a trip to WHYY in Philadelphia. My friend Maureen had tickets to the town hall meeting with Terry Gross and the whole Fresh Air crew. And if you're a Terry Gross Fresh Air fan, you would have liked it because not only was Terry Gross there, in spite of the cold she's been fighting all week, but her whole crew was there. And it was fun, even in spite of having to walk a few blocks in the frigid cold. And wow, was it ever cold last night. If any of you were out in it, you know it was brutal. 17 degrees. And with the wind, it felt even colder. But here's the thing. As I was getting ready to meet Maureen, and I'm wondering if any of you are the same way, I was getting ready to meet Maureen. And knowing we were going to be doing some walking, I decided to dress warmly. And I would have. Except that if I'd already had my hat-insulated boots out of storage, I would have, but I didn't. Or if I even had allowed some time to take them out. But I didn't do that either. My boots are still in the basement in a container. Well, the boots I wanted to wear, because I was wearing black, so I had to wear black boots. So they're still in a container. And that wasn't the biggest problem. The problem was that they were in a container. The problem was that the boots are filled with that, packing stuff that I always put inside so that it'll keep the boots will keep their shape during the warm months. So it takes a few minutes to take the stuffing out. I had to get the boots. I had to move some container. I had to find the boots. I had to take the stuffing out. And as I said, I was rushing so I wouldn't be late, and getting the boots would have taken more time than I had. so I just wore my regular shoes. Same with my hat. Sort of the same with my hat. I don't know where it was. In fact, last night when I was freezing with just a head warmer and a hood, I was remembering that I might have washed it last spring and shrunk it, so I may not even have a winter hat. And that would have been really good to remember before last night, because I was freezing and thought, for goodness sake, it's December. When did I think it would be a good time to get the winter things out? I think that proves that I'm a winter denier. Not a climate change denier, a winter denier. I don't like to give in to the cold weather until I absolutely have to do it. So I think I pretend it's never going to happen. And you know what, if you remember this time last year, it almost didn't. I was just talking to the guy who owns Penn's Table across the street, and he said this time last year, because he keeps track of this with his customers, he said it was 70 degrees and they were still eating out on the patio. And for Christmas, I was in St. Michael's, and I was walking around in a sweater and a light jacket. So obviously there's some historical background for being a winter denier, but not this year. And if, like me, you're a winter denier, it's too late. Get over it and get your winter stuff out, because, baby, it's cold out there. So back to WHY and Terry Gross. If you're a fan of her show, Fresh Air, you would have enjoyed it. And I am a fan, and I did. Terry Gross is like a radio host model for someone like me. So hearing about how the whole show gets put together, and not just from Terry, but from the whole crew, was very interesting. And they all sat on a small stage in an auditorium that seated maybe 200 people, maybe 250. So it was pretty intimate. And they didn't have much prepared. And by that I mean that no one had a prepared speech, which was good. So when they started, each member of the team just kind of talked about what they did in a very short description. And then the rest of the time they took questions from the audience. And that was good. It was interesting to hear how the show gets produced and what it takes to promote it, the amount of editing that happens, and why things are edited out. Terry said she appreciated that the editing that cut her ums and ahs or covered for her when she didn't know where to go with something that a guest said. And both she and Dave, Dave, if you listen to the show, he fills in for Terry, gave examples of times when they weren't giving their guests their full attention. Like maybe when they were getting the next question ready for a guest and got caught. And I know that happens. Once or twice I've been talking to a guest and I've been prepping my next question, or something happens in the studio. Like one time I spilled tea and I missed a half sentence the guest said, and then she stopped talking. And I didn't know if she asked me a question or ended her sentence. Well, so it was nice to know that kind of thing happens to somebody who's been on the air for 40 years. And the other thing I was glad to hear was how hard it is to get celebrity guests. And who would think Fresh Air and Terry Gross would have a hard time getting those guests? And Meryl Streep was one of them, and Terry Gross was talking about that, or one of her staff was talking about how they had tried. Every time a new movie came out, they tried to get Meryl Streep. They never could. They just kept trying and trying. Finally, they booked Meryl Streep, and guess what happened? Meryl Streep asked why they had never had her on before, and she was disappointed. She was wondering why they had never had her on. So apparently it had nothing to do with Meryl, but with her staff. She never knew that they had turned down Terry Gross. I know how that is. There's someone I wanted to join us for happy hour in January. I was holding 2 dates in January for her, and her staff wasn't getting back to me. Well, now it's the middle of December, and I need to get those dates booked. So this past week, I gave them till the end of business on Wednesday to confirm a date. And all I got back was an apology for the delay, and they said they'd get back to me. Well, I'm not sure when, but clearly it won't be for January happy hour. And Terry said one of her favorite interviews was with Maurice Sendak, the author from Where the Wild Things Are. Terry said that interview, which she did shortly before he died, was like the conversation she wished she'd had with her own parents before they died. And if you never heard the interview, I posted it on today's radio wrap-up. And you know what I also posted was that Terry's infamous interview with Gene Simmons of Kiss. And if you don't remember that one, or if you've never heard it, Simmons was intimidating and sexually rude. It's the one where the newsmaker in that show was Simmons telling Terry that if she couldn't welcome him with open arms unless she also welcomed him with open legs. To which Terry Gross told him that he was obnoxious. And after that, he got more obnoxious. If you've never heard it, how Terry handled it was very interesting. So I posted that on the radio wrap-up at victoriouswoman.com. I did meet Terry afterwards. I didn't expect that she would do it because she's been fighting that cold. But she graciously chatted with her fans, and I was one of them. So I posted a couple of pictures on today's radio wrap-up. So it's kind of neat. Okay, listen, we're ready for a break. But let me tell you why I invited Joanette McGeoch to join us for Happy Hour. Joanette's been an astrologer for over 40 years. In addition to doing readings, she teaches astrology and dream interpretation classes. Also, for the past 20 years, she's been leading women's circles and talking about the value of cycles and the asteroid goddesses, which highlight the rising feminine energy that, everybody's feeling on the planet. Maybe we'll get to talk with Joanette about some of that part today, but it's Mercury Retrograde that we're going to start with. So we're going to step away for a couple minutes, and when we come back, I'll be here with my cousin, Astrologer Joanette McGeoch. You're listening to the Friday Happy Hour.
When you wished you had more time for yourself, and now you have it, but you notice you're keeping busy with stuff, but that stuff isn't making you feel happy or filled up? And when you think about what would make you happy and filled up, you get stuck or feel overwhelmed. And then you go back to what's more familiar, more comfortable, even if it's not making you happy. Wouldn't you love to find a way to start making sense of that deep discontent you're feeling? Well, you're not alone. I'm Annmarie Kelly, author, victory strategist, and the radio show host of the Friday Happy Hour. And I know there's a place for you, one that other women have found to be both inspirational and empowering. And it's the Victorious Woman Project. Go there now and get on my mailing list, where you'll be the first to know about my upcoming online workshops, teleseminars, and more. And while you're there, take a couple minutes to look over my blog. You can download some of the free stuff I have for you and let it get your creative juices going. I'm looking forward to meeting you at the Victorious Woman Project. And that's at www.victoriouswoman.com.
Welcome back to the Friday Happy Hour. I'm your host, Annmarie Kelly, and I'm here with astrologer and my cousin, Joanette McGeoch. Welcome, Joanette.
Hi, Annmarie. It's so good to be here with you.
Thank you. I'm glad to have you here. Joanette, before we talk about astrology, I was telling my listeners that our mothers were sisters, and they were both Leos.
Yes, they were.
And we turned out okay in spite of that.
In spite of that.
Not offending any of you Leos, but, you're tough.
Wait a second. I'm a Leo, so...
Well, that's true. It's like my life is dotted with them. Joseph's a Leo.
Oh, right, okay.
And he has a twin brother.
Oh, right.
Also a Leo, and his mother was a Leo. It's like I'm surrounded.
Oh, it's too much fire for you.
It is too much fire for me. And that water keeps trying to
put it out.
Yeah, that's right.
Right.
So, but one of the funniest things I used to think about them is how competitive they were. And yet if anyone criticized one, the other one defended.
Right there. Loyal to the teeth, yes.
And is that typical of Leo?
Oh, Leos are very loyal. Yeah, very loyal, especially to family. Family is really important to Leos. And they'll fight. Leo the lion, fight to the death for their family, for their children. And
fight to the death to be wrong.
Well, yes, that's true, too.
But only because they think they're right.
Right. Yes, that's right. And the trouble with Leos is they're not always right. And when they're dealing with Capricorns are always right.
That's right.
So that's the problem.
I say that to Joseph. He always thinks he's right.
But they're not.
But I, as a Capricorn, I know I'm right. So
Leos like the truth to be a little bit more colorful. They don't like it straight,
That's true. They like to embellish.
Yes.
Listen, Jenna, you've been doing astrology for a long time, and I know you don't see it as a fortune-telling tool.
No.
So, But some people don't like it because they think it's that, but it really isn't.
No.
What do you see as the function of astrology?
Well, the function of astrology, if you understood astrology, could be a helpful tool in your life. In fact, I loved your story in the beginning about being a winter denier.
Oh, yes.
I love that because people are astrology deniers or Mercury retrograde deniers in the same way. The way I see astrology, and this is where the cycles come in, is that, the leaves are falling off the trees. The sun isn't and the sky is long. And so you notice that the signs are telling you that, wow, maybe I better get ready for the winter. And some people, they don't do that.
They don't.
And so, but the same with astrology. The astrology is giving you signs, and you could choose to do what you want with those signs. They're giving you tools. You can use those tools or you don't. Or you can misuse them, or you don't. But we learned, you and I, when we started astrology all these years ago, the first thing we learned is that astrology is something that impels, it doesn't compel, which means it gives you understanding, and it's up to you what you do with it. And so with astrology, I find when someone comes for a reading or when I'm looking for something, I want to know what the tools are that I could use to help me for the next phase of my life. Mm-hmm. And so if you know what the tools are, you can use them and you can make life better for yourself. Or you could ignore them and you could still be fine. You don't need it.
But just a little bit easier when you know the tools.
Just a little bit easier.
We were talking earlier, you and I, that the reason I stopped doing the charts back, when I was doing them, was because it seemed like all people wanted to know was, when am I going to get married?
People want you to tell them what to do.
Yeah.
But everybody has free will, and they have to be responsible in using their own free will.
And Jenna, I see that even in my classes. Sometimes people come to a class and they want me to tell them, do this. No. That's not how my classes go.
Yes.
It's like, you plan it out, and then we'll, I and the group will give you some feedback, but you're still entitled to do whatever you want to do.
All right. Well, we all need to take responsibility for our choices.
And that's a big deal. Yeah. And not everybody does.
Right.
Or wants to.
Right.
I've been mentioning Mercury retrograde, and I've been wanting to have you on to talk about this for a while because, well, first of all, can you tell people what Mercury retrograde actually is?
Sure. So Mercury retrograde, because it's now a popular mindset, people say, oh, Mercury retrograde's coming in, so everything's not going to work, and we're not going to communicate well. Well, what Mercury means, first of all, in a chart, Mercury rules communication, and it rules information, and it's creativity, and it's also fun. Mercury represents the fun you have in your life. And so when it goes retrograde, those things aren't moving in the orderly way that it would have. Now, in reality, Mercury itself, the planet, never goes retrograde. It's always going straight. It's just that it goes around the sun so much faster than the Earth that from the Earth's angle, from the Earth's perspective, it looks like every so often that it's going backwards, even though it's not. But it does affect us in our dealings, or it's a sign for us to help us in our dealings with life, that these periods of time are periods of time to help us in anything that we're willing to do. It helps us with our communication, and help us with our information gathering and our creativity. So when Mercury goes retrograde, they say, oh, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't sign any papers, you shouldn't go on trips, you shouldn't make important decisions, and all those things, you go, okay, I'm not going to do that. But supposing the dream job of your life comes along and they want you to start on Mercury retrograde, and the chart says you shouldn't do that, well, you can't tell that person, well, I have to wait till Mercury go direct until I can start this job, right?
Yeah, then you wouldn't have a job.
But the way you use that information, the way you can use it for your to help you is as a tool, is to say, well, wait a minute, if that's being offered to you, with Mercury retrograde, you have a good opportunity to do anything that's got a re in front of it, R-E. You can reevaluate, research, relook.
So you could start that job you
can start it in another frame of mind. You start it and you say, wait, let me make sure that I'm going to research how I get there, who I'm talking to. I'm going to assess what I need to do for this job.
Or reevaluate the team that I'm on.
Right. And that will make then the Mercury retrograde smooth for you at the start of a new job. Same if you're going to sell your house or you're going to sign important papers. That's a good time for you to really pay attention to what you're signing. Look at it over 3 times before you sign it. Many times we go through our lives and we're not even thinking what we're doing. We kind of just cruise along.
And somebody says sign here.
And you say, okay, I sign. I'm not going to read that fine print. Well, if Mercury's retrograde, anytime it's important to read the fine print. But when it's retrograde, it's really important. And it's a time where you pay attention and question and re-look and reevaluate. And so it can work to your advantage because it helps you to see something that maybe you wouldn't have seen. And if you're not paying attention, then Mercury's going to catch you and say, see, you weren't paying attention.
It happened to me one time. But, when you talked about Mercury and the trips, I have often gone to Maine, and I think the first time I went to Maine, we were in a retrograde. And I've come to understand that sometimes when you travel in a retrograde, and it doesn't mean that you're going to have an accident, but it might mean that you'll like it so much that you'll go back.
Yes.
And I've been going to Maine for 20 years now, so that's the one I like to believe. And another thing that happened when I was teaching school, I was a substitute teacher for 4 months. And they had a trip planned to the historic district of Philadelphia. So here I am, a substitute teacher with a classroom full of maybe 30 kids. And I had, parents. We had set well, there were several classes, but my class was about 30 kids, and I had my mothers coming. And Mercury was not only retrograde, but it was in direct opposition to my midheaven, which for those of you who, Jonah's laughing, but your midheaven is your career. So here I was doing the substitute job, waiting to get a job teaching, and here was Mercury retrograde in opposition to my midheaven. And I looked and I thought, okay, so what could possibly happen bad with 30 kids in Center City, Philadelphia, at the historic district? And what I did was I took my kids, my little group of kids, 5 or 6 kids, however it was, and I offered this to all of my parents who were also doing it. Nobody else wanted to do it, but I took them in the opposite direction of everything. So they all started at Independence Hall. I started at Betsy Ross's house. By the time we got back to Independence Hall, there were no lines. Everything was fine. And when I caught up with my mothers again, they were like, they were just so upset every place they went with the whole group of 60 other kids, or however many. Everybody's kids were jumping around and being crazy. And my kids got to see the Christ Church and Betsy Ross house, and we just went in the opposite direction. So I don't think I would have done that if Mercury hadn't been retrograde. Right. I just looked and planned differently, and that's what you were saying about the planning part.
You plan better. If you plan better, and if you have a certain plan, and when you see it's not working, you reevaluate and you change it, and that'll work better. Instead of saying, oh, this is the plan, I've got to stick with this plan, it won't work. Which normally you should do that, but Mercury will really catch you and say don't do that. That's why it worked. And also when you're talking about vacation, I loved you say that because another word is relax, rejuvenate, retreat. And when we go on vacation, it's a good time to go Mercury retrograde if you're going on a real vacation. If you're going on an American vacation, meaning that you have a schedule and your plane goes here and you have to be at this place at this time and you have to see this at this time, then that's not real vacation. And if you're doing a Mercury retrograde vacation, that's not going to work. You're going to be all upset because this didn't work and that didn't work. But if you're going to go to really relax and you go, and if the plane's late, that's okay. And if the place you were going to go see is closed at the hour you're there, that's all right. You might find it redirects you in a way that's much more relaxing, much more rejuvenating than you would have if you had followed that schedule.
And if you go to the place and it's closed, maybe there's someplace else that's better for you to be.
It's better for you to be, and you'll enjoy it better. You'll be refreshed by the new place. So, and Mercury lots of times usually goes retrograde in July, August, September, and usually goes retrograde at this time of the year, November, December, January. So because it goes retrograde in the summer, lots of times people find they go on vacation, and they do really have a good vacation if they're relaxing, if that's their intent.
Interesting. Joanette, we have to take a break, so we're going to go. Everybody stay close, and we'll be right back with Joanette McGeoch. You're listening to the Friday Happy Hour.
Hi, this is Annmarie Kelly, author, victory strategist, and the radio show host of the Friday Happy Hour. I trust you're enjoying my conversation with this fabulous, victorious woman. If you're getting inspired with ideas and feeling empowered, this is just the tip of the iceberg. There's more for you. Tips, downloads, resources at the Victorious Woman Project. Go to victoriouswoman.com and look around and get on my mailing list so you can be the first to know about the newest good things I have for you. That's www.victoriouswoman.com.
Welcome back to the Friday Happy Hour. I'm your host, Annmarie Kelly, and we're here talking astrology with Joanette McGeoch, my cousin and an official astrologer. So, Joanette, we were talking a little bit about Mercury retrograde. So I'm wondering, like, how often does it happen? And you were talking about the planning things, but what are some things that are most likely to go awry?
Okay, so Mercury goes retrograde 3 times every 13 months. So it's some years it's 4 times, sometimes it's 3 times. So some years it's 3 times it goes retrograde, some years it's 4. This past year was the 4 times it went retrograde, and the coming year will be 3 times. The Mercury retrograde usually goes retrograde in the summer, but also at this time of the year.
And it starts on Monday.
It starts on Monday. And people always say, oh, Mercury retrograde during Christmas makes me crazy because lots of times you buy things and then you have to return them. That's another word. Mercury is a great time for returning things, and regretting things. So the idea is that if this time of the year, and Mercury is usually retrograde, which makes sense whether it's retrograde or not, is if you plan better, don't buy anything on a spur of the moment because you'll probably have to return it or you may never use it. At this time of the year, especially during Mercury retrograde, if you're out looking for something, make sure you need it, rethink about it, research it, and pay attention to whether it's something that's really valuable. So we tend to spur of the moment buy things and then regret it and then have to return them. But if you think about it, you don't have to do that. The other thing is, while it's retrograde, a way you can use it is rethink about how you celebrate your tradition. This is a good time to reestablish relationships or to look at your celebrations in a new way. Maybe you find every year at the end of the season or end of the holiday season you're exhausted and it didn't live up to your expectation. Well, maybe you could say, this year I'm going to do it different. Reassess, realign, replan, and to make it so that it's better for you. I was even saying maybe you could even re-gift this year, because we have so many things that we don't need and so many things we may never use, but other people might. And why not, instead of buying something new, rushing around, look and take something that you have and say, you know what, they would love this. My friend would love this. Or you have a friend that saw something and said, I'd love it. I wished I had one of them. Maybe this is time you could re-gift it to them. So it's just re-looking at how you do the holidays. And it's a great time to reconnect to family, to make amends or to repair. There's a lot that can be used on a retrograde that we lose. And to relax. Really take time to relax during the holidays. And so
and to review. It's a good time to review the year.
Good time to review the year.
Because we have a brand new baby year coming up in a couple of weeks.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's good, yeah. So it starts on Monday, and how long is it going to be there?
It's going to be there this time from until January 8th, I believe, is January 12th. December 19th to January 12th is the retrograde. It will be way into the, at least 2 weeks into the new year. And so it would be easy to return things. You have at least till the second week in January. You can return them.
And you probably don't need to start, you probably don't need to start that diet right at the first of the year. You wait till the Mercury goes to retrograde.
Oh, yes, definitely have to wait till the Mercury goes retrograde. You're never going to.
Now, Joanette, I was looking this up. In fact, I posted the retrogrades on the radio wrap-up for the one that we're starting on Monday, and then I posted the other 3 for 2017. But, when I was looking at everything and looking for the dates, it had, stuff that Mercury's in retrograde about 3 weeks.
Right. Well, anywhere from 3 weeks to a month. It's not always the same. Mercury doesn't like to do things the same all the time. But
on the astrology sites, it has that there's the shadow period, and so it says, okay, so if it's Mercury's 3 weeks, and then it's in this shadow period for 2 weeks, and it's past period for 2 weeks, and I thought, well, you're in Mercury retrograde the whole year,
except for those 4 weeks when everything is fine.
But yes, and then you hope nothing else in your chart's going wrong.
Right.
So what do those things mean on the front end and the back end of the whole solid Mercury retrograde?
It means that the influence can be felt coming into that period of time for those days before. That's why I forget things. I got lost coming here. The influence was there. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But it doesn't. And the influence of it lasts longer. We're talking about the energies of these huge planets, and so it is going to affect us for a longer period than just those specific that it says in the ephemeris. But I personally, those things, I don't put too much stock in it because it'll make you crazy, first of all.
It could, it really could, because you're like, oh my God, everything's a retrograde, and then it becomes like white noise.
Yeah, it's white noise. All you really need to remember is that if you do take time to do what it is you do, be conscious, be awake most of your when you're waking, and
be paying attention.
Paying attention, things will work better for you. It just says during the retrograde, your mind's a little fuzzy, and you don't want to be doing as much as you thought you would.
And the retrogrades come in signs, like this one coming that starts on Monday is in Sagittarius.
Well, no, it starts in Capricorn. It starts in Capricorn, but it goes into Aquarius.
Oh, yeah, I meant Sagittarius.
Yeah,
it starts in Capricorn.
Right. And so it flavors.
So this is a special one for me.
Oh, it's a special one for you. It flavors the sign, which means this particular one, and that happens, it goes through the cycle of the signs every 7 years. It's about a 7-year cycle. And what it means is that you will have a much easier time with this Mercury retrograde because you're Capricorn. You like to plan things. You like to organize things. And so Capricorn doesn't mind that they have to take the extra time because they're doing it anyway. And if something breaks, they're happy because they like to fix things and get them right. And so this Mercury retrograde won't be as bad for you.
Oh, I'm going away. I'm going away for part of the time so I can finish my book because there's so many distractions.
Yes.
That I'm not getting that mindset where I can sit down and put my brain into the writing. Right. So I'm going away for a couple of days just to finish that up.
And actually, this is a good time with it in Capricorn to organize. You want to,
Oh, you mean I should clean my office?
Well, you don't have to go that far.
Oh, that's good. So what happens with some of the others, like coming into this retrograde? So this is what a Capricorn would do. What about if...
Well, like if you go through the signs, and Aries is always very upset when Mercury goes retrograde, except what's in the fire signs. But Aries wants to get things done. They want to do it now. They don't want to take the time to think about it. And besides, Aries already knows what it's supposed to do, and it's just impatient, waiting for everybody else to decide what to do, and then they have to deal with other people's mistakes. So Aries aren't always happy about retrograde.
Oh, this is true.
So then you go into Taurus. Now, Taurus likes retrogrades because Taurus likes things slow, and they like to be careful, and they like things to work in an orderly fashion. So they don't mind. They like it if the rest of the world is slowing down for them. Now, I forgot to tell you, the gift that Aries brings is the gift of movement. For Taurus, the gift they give is of nourishment. Taurus likes to nourish things, and so they're okay with the retrograde because they want to nourish everything they do. Gemini are not happy with the retrograde because that means that they have to slow down, and they want to do 18 things, and they want to make sure they get to the parties. And so they're...
Our incoming president's a Gemini.
Ah, right. So usually they just want to just keep moving. They don't want to stop and think before they move. So that's the Gemini. Now, the Cancers like Mercury retrograde, especially this time of the year, because when plans fall through, they're happy because they didn't really want to be out at this party anyway. Oh, good, I don't have to go. They can be quiet.
So if it snows and they have to stay home, they're happy.
They're very happy. Whereas the Gemini is going, wait, I want to get out there. I wanted to party.
You know what, Joanette? We need to take a break. So the next sign coming up would be Leo. So if you're a Leo, hang in there, or any of the other signs that we haven't covered yet. And we're going to be talking about what you need to think about in a Mercury retrograde. So stay close. You're listening to the Friday Happy Hour.
Are you one of those women who lived the first part of your life as a really good girl? That is, you did all the right things and followed all the so-called rules for women? I was like that too. But have you noticed that once you passed 40, you have less patience for those rules? Maybe you even think that the rules really don't make sense for you anymore. Maybe they never did and you just didn't realize it. Do you want to go where other recovering good girls meet to inspire each other and support their new empowered selves? Then join me, Annmarie Kelly, and some very fabulous victorious women. We're on Facebook at the Victorious Woman Project. So go to facebook.com/Victorious Woman Project. I'll talk to you there.
Welcome back to the Friday Happy Hour. I'm Annmarie Kelly, and I'm here with Astrologer Joanette McGeoch. And we were talking about ways that your particular sign can deal with the Mercury retrograde that starts on Monday, and we got it up as far as Leo. So, Jeanette, tell us about Leos.
Leos are not happy when Mercury retrograde because then they really have to slow down and they like to be moving. And they're especially upset if plans fall through because they really wanted to go to the party because they had new clothes they wanted everybody to see them in, and they're upset.
Or a new job that they wanted to tell everybody about.
Mm-hmm. And so they can't, so they're not going to be happy about that. But they're fun, so that's a gift they give you. And with
that's coming from a Leo.
That's coming from a Leo. Right, that's right.
The rest of us are going crazy, but the Leos are having a good time.
Yeah. And with Virgo, Virgo doesn't worry. It's not as bad with them for retrograde either because they like to plan things. The only thing is Virgos are very good at criticizing all the people that makes all the mistakes and criticizing their own mistakes that they make and paying attention to that. But
yeah, Virgos are really hard on themselves.
They're very hard on themselves. And so Virgo, if they could just relax a little, it's a good opportunity for them to relax. For Libra also, they're okay with the retrograde. They're not happy if things break because they don't really feel like having to do anything extra. They like to relax and
unless
enjoy.
They can tell somebody else to fix it.
Unless they can get somebody else to fix it. That's true. And Libras, though, if they do have to fix something, they will rise to the occasion, and they're fine. Scorpios are not happy with the retrogrades either, but they won't tell you. But you'll know anyway. They think that nobody knows, but you'll know. But they won't tell you.
Because those Scorpios are always so secretive.
Right.
They hold everything in.
But they'll be not happy. But if they do have to fix something, they'll persevere. And they'll make sure it gets done, and they're very good that way.
They go into their own zone.
They go into their own zone and get it done, and they're good that way. They're a good gift for perseverance, good example of perseverance. And Sagittarius they just hate retrograde because that does mean they have to slow down. But they will reevaluate and relook at all the information that comes in. And for this particular retrograde, when it goes from Capricorn into Sag, after the beginning of the year, they're sure to tell you exactly what they've learned about.
Because Sagittarius are the learners.
They're learners of the zodiac, and they also give you hope because they'll give you the high ideal of of what's coming up. So that's what for Sagittarius. Capricorn, again, they love Mercury retrograde only because they take their time and they're careful about what they do, so they work well with it. And it's a good time for Capricorns, especially in this retrograde, because if something breaks, they like to fix things, and they could do it. They do it well. And then Aquarians, they don't care. Aquarians go along with the flow anyway, and they love the opportunity. If there's plans change, they love to creatively figure out another way to do something. They don't mind the problems because that just gives them a good excuse to play, get it done better. And then Pisces really don't like it either because if something breaks, they really don't want to fix it. They don't want to think about it. They don't want to do anything about it.
And it was probably their fault, so now they feel bad.
They feel bad.
Pisces is really good for doing guilt.
But Pisces, though, if you plans change and you can't do the parties, that's okay. They don't care. They'll party anyway in their own way. So
that's good. So that's Mercury retrograde. This Mercury retrograde through the zodiac. There are two other things that I wanted to ask you about, and one of them was about Saturn return, because for my listeners who are in midlife, Saturn does a return. Saturn, as it was when you were born, does what is called a return when you're about 28, 29, and then again in your 50s.
60s.
In your 60s.
Let's say 58, 59, 60 is the second Saturn return.
And so what would we be looking about for my listeners who are in that age group?
Well, when you're 28, 29, you start looking at your life and you go, wait, what have I accomplished so far? What were my goals? What did I have planned for myself? And when you get to that point, you go, have I reached them? Is it working the way I want it? Say you wanted to be a lawyer, but by the time you get to that point, you go, you know what? I really don't like this. I think I want to be an actor. And so when you get to 30, 29, 30, it's a good time to reassess what your goals were, and it's a good time to make changes then. You'll find people maybe changing jobs, changing careers, at that point. And the same then comes when you're 59, 60, because now you're looking at the end, sort of the end of your career in a sense. Was this career fulfilling? Do I want to continue this? If I'm thinking of retiring, what will I do now? Because by the time you get to 60, there are things you can't do that you used to be able to do. So you have to reevaluate, and you look at your life and you go, what do I want to continue doing? What do I want to change?
And that's where so many in my group of Victory Chicks, that's the reinvention.
The reinvention. You have an absolute perfect time for reinvention.
Mm-hmm.
And And so the same too with 29, 30. Like, there's a lot of things you can't do at 30 that you could do when you were 16.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot more responsibility you have to take on at 30. But the same with 60.
If you're still going to the bars and getting drunk on Friday night, that's not so good at 30.
30, yeah, right. Your body hurts. You can't really, And the same with 60. There's a lot of things you can't do at 60 that you could have done when you were 30. And so you have to tailor your life now. Well, I'm not going to be able to ski. Well, some people can still ski down the mountains, those people, but most of us won't be able to do that. Or if we do, we will do something, we're a little more careful, because if something breaks, it takes a little bit longer to heal. So it's really rethinking how to keep your life alive and vibrant in the changes. And that's what that return, the Saturn return, the teacher, is helping you to take the opportunity to look at.
And Saturn is the teaching planet.
Is the teaching planet. So you're learning things about yourself, and the Saturn teaches you and says, okay, now what have you learned? This is your test. And how will you use it from now on? How are you going to use your gifts? And
it's a good time that if you didn't in the first Saturn return, what you missed, this is a good time to catch up and get it done.
Absolutely. It's a good time to relook at those things and say, maybe I do want to go to Egypt, and maybe I should go now. And you can go.
Good idea. And then there's something else. This is a relatively new planet, Chiron.
Yes, Chiron is a new planet. It was really only discovered in the late 70s. Chiron has a very unusual orbit, so that it was hard for them to understand it. So it's something new in the consciousness of our human kindness at this point. And Chiron is the Greek god who was the wounded healer. He was the one that was wounded but could never heal. But as a result, he was the great physician, and all the gods would send their children to Chiron to learn the healing arts. And what Chiron represents in a chart is the place where you are wounded is the place where you can heal. And so
wait, I don't understand. It's in the place where you are wounded is the place where you can heal. Give me an example.
So supposing you were when you were a child, you were told that you weren't that you can't speak well, and that you can't, people will not listen to you, and so you were wounded in that the fact that you didn't feel like you can communicate. But you get to the point where when you heal that and learn that you can communicate, then you can heal that, but then you also have the ability to help other people learn to speak, other people to use their communication in a way that's valuable for them. And so it's the place where you are wounded is the place where you can heal yourself and others. And for Chiron, the cycle is a 50-year cycle. And usually at 50 years, you're faced with any wounds that you haven't dealt with, you're going to have to deal with at 49, 50.
So Victory Chicks and you guys, you have your new year, your brand new baby year cut out for you, because once you get through Mercury Retrograde, you can look at, if you're in that 50s time, you can look at stuff that has been bothering you, and good time to go for therapy or work it out or reconnect with people that you have cut out of your life.
Mm-hmm. And it's a good time for healing. It's a very good time for healing.
That's good, Janet. I'm glad you joined us for Happy Hour. I think astrology charts make great Christmas gifts.
Yes.
And so if somebody wants their astrology chart done or wants to give one as a gift, how can they get in touch with you?
They can just my email. It's 806. It's Joanette36@gmail.com, and you just email me if you're interested,
And what she's saying is Joanette. Her father's name was Joe and her mother's name was Annette, so they put it together, and it's Joanette.
It's Joannette 36.
So, and if you tell her that she's raising her prices in the new year, so if you tell her that you heard her on the Happy Hour, she'll give you the current discounted rate. And you wonderful Victory Chicks, and you guys come back next week. I have a fun Christmas show planned for you before we get to the new year and new goals and new challenges. And before we get to that brand new baby year of 2017, I hope you're taking some time now to think about how you want your new year to be. What do you want different this time next year? What are your dreams? What do you want to do? What are you willing to commit to? If you haven't already joined my mailing list at victoriously.com or join me on Facebook at Victory Chicks Community, do it today. Victory Chicks Community. And my quote for you today is, and now I just need to find it, is from author Eleanor Caton, who has an interesting perspective on astrology. And she said, "The way I see astrology is as a repository of thought and psychology, a system we've created as a culture, as a way to make things mean things." I can buy that, because we as human beings are always looking for a way to give pieces of our life meaning. So for some people, astrology is one way, and maybe it's a good way for you. So come back next week. Joanette, thank you for joining us today, and everybody have a victorious weekend.
Thank you, Annmarie. I really enjoyed it.
I'm glad you came. Mm-hmm. Okay, Chenzan.
Thanks for listening to this Friday Happy Hour. Make sure you subscribe, rate and review today's show. And join us again next week for the Friday Happy Hour with Annmarie Kelly.